Everybody, it's Christian Pedersen. Welcome you back to another episode of San Diego Prep Insider, joined by Raymond Brown from San Diego Football Network. We're going to talk about a lot of football, but before we get to that, I want to just give everybody a little news update. The San Diego Sports Association is going to be having the National Letter of Intent signing event celebration at Snapdragon Stadium November 8th this year. So attention to all high school seniors and their families, and even friends want to roll through and support. We have seen an entourage or two on these days. It's going to be held that morning. Event's going to start at 8. It's going to run about an hour, give everybody a chance to get celebrated where they are going. Bring your letters. We're going to have KUSI there. It's going to be a party. Come hang out. Raymond, you're more than welcome to join us that morning because I know there's going to be some early football signees going. All right, so now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk football. Raymond, we are closing in on I think it's safe to say we're in the home stretch, the final leg, whatever you want to call it, of the season as we go forward in these next 3 weeks. So I think playoffs are now shifting past the midpoint of being like early in the season. It's like, oh, it's all in this hypothetical section. Then kind of in the middle of the season, it's like, all right, I got a little rough picture. Now we're into like very tangible, like if these guys beat these guys, then this happened. Like we're starting to be able to do the math. And there's a lot of great accounts out there that do the math. Braden Soprenet and different people run different cow preps. Look, we don't do that. I don't have the mental capacity to do that. Also, other people are already doing it, so I'm not trying to copy other people's style. But Raymond is very, very dialed in on these playoff rankings. So we're going to talk about some of his points of view on this. Raymond, thank you for the lengthy introduction. You said beforehand, I believe it was going crazy when it was you described the difference between that edge on the Division I and the open division playoffs. I think at this point, it seems safe to say that barring a major upset, Lincoln and Cathedral are into the open division. Different media outlets have them ranked 1 versus 2. I've always subscribed to if you are the defending champion, you haven't lost. I don't see how you could be moved down, but I don't really care who ranks 1 or 2. That's just, it's going to be Carlsbad Lincoln. So 3, 4 of those seem wide open and with huge implications still to go on the Granite and Helix game that's going to be played. What are you seeing though? Like, tell me some of what the things that have you thinking, why you're saying, hey, this is going crazy.
Well, first of all, I think the open division is locked right now. I think the game between Helix and Granite Hills is just going to determine who's the 3rd or 4th seed. Unless something crazy happened, like you said, I think Granite Hills still got a game against Steel Canyon, which they're a good team. They could possibly upset Granite Hills if they don't watch out. And Helix still got Santana. They're heavy favorites there, but there's a couple of slip-up games that could mess them up. But if they run the table and the only loss is to each other, I think it stays like that. Now, Division I, that's where things get crazy because we don't know who's at the top. Everybody in the Avocado League who live in Carlsbad is beating up on each other. Yeah, man, we got a bloodbath in D1. It could go either way. I mean, everybody's talking down on Cathedral right now. They're 2-6, but I would watch out for them in the playoff.
So what you're saying is you see us locked 1 through 4. You see Lincoln, Carlsbad, Helix, Granite in some permutation. You don't see anybody else making a move.
No, I don't. Those are locked. Unless an upset happens, unless Santana beats Helix or Steel Canyon beats Granite Hills, I think those 4 are locked. Because last year we saw Madison was undefeated, then they lost to Lincoln at the end of the year, and they still got the 3rd seed over an undefeated Poway team. So I can see a similar situation this year with Helix and Granite Hills.
Okay. I always appreciate when someone brings some actual precedent like that. Like I said, though, there are the accounts that do the math. I don't do the math. I would say that seems like a pretty optimal 1 through 4, though. That seems like we're going to be probably getting some really good competitive games. Yes, you're happy with that as the open division representation this year?
I'm absolutely happy with it. Those are the 4 best teams, in my opinion. And I don't think anybody else in the bottom can is passing those teams up.
So looking then on to the Division I side, like you said, we don't really know who's going to end up being the 1 seed, but it also feels like we don't really know who's a lock on any of this with, some of these teams have very varying results. They were blowing the doors off of people 1 week, then they were losing games looking bad the next. And they've had a couple of upsets. And Torrey Pines, I think, is performing better than a lot of people had expected, just given kind of where they were at in the relative power rankings of, like you said, the Avocado going crazy and North County in general being, Poway We know that they were capable of making open last year. We've seen some good, we've seen some bad. Like there's a lot of stuff, Raymond, that it seems like it's almost like it doesn't matter who ends up being that one seed. It almost seems like maybe it comes down to just in general who's at home versus on the road. But yeah, this one seems like you could talk me into Ramona or LCC coming out of like the 6th seed in D1 or the 8th seed in D1 and winning it. I wouldn't bat an eyelash. So
Yeah, you also got to look out for San Marcos. I mean, Creed Machiavelli's injured right now, but I think he's slated to come back in time for the playoffs. So they're an X factor in that too. And you also have a great Mira Mesa team that's sitting at the bottom at the 16 right now. So yeah, it's gonna be crazy, man. I don't think the seeding is gonna matter this year. It's just gonna be it's gonna be matchups. It's gonna
so
be all
then
about the matchups.
are you game watching anything? And we've got some games then that we can talk about coming up this week where you're looking at that grouping of X, Y, or Z teams in Division One. Who are you closely watching? Cathedral? Are you looking more to see LCC? Like who are you watching this week in this Division One race, if anybody?
Definitely watching Mission Hills. Um, what do they got this week? Sorry, they got Carlsbad, right? Or is
Mission Hills is playing La Costa Canyon at home.
okay? Yeah, that's the game I'm watching for right there. That could be a playoff rematch. Depending, there's probably a game to see who the higher seed is. Or so I don't think Mission Hills they got them at number 5 right now. I don't think they're going to get into that top 4. I don't think they can. I don't think they can garner enough points to get into the top 4. So this is going to be yeah, I think it's going to be a matchup who gets that number 1 seed in D1. Because La Costa Canyon, they got some good wins, but they also got some bad losses. El Camino, that's another team we got to watch out for.
El Camino's
They,
taking on Poway this week. What are your thoughts on that game?
yeah, I think I got El Camino winning that one. They're just playing too good right now, man. Carson Howard, he's playing great. Reese is doing great on both sides of the ball. So yeah, there's
And
just
that
so
one's
many
gonna be
sleeper
at,
teams.
and that one's going to be at Poway. So that's kind of one of those good road tests that even though you would think that maybe El Camino with 7 wins gets a home game, eventually maybe they're going to have to go on the road in the semifinals or something like that. So you'd like to see if they are going to be a championship contender team that they can do it on the road late in the season. That's usually a pretty good indicator. I think the other game that I was kind of really looking at was the Cathedral Catholic and Madison game. I've been talked at a lot about how Cathedral Catholic, despite having a losing record this season, is still a really good team. And everyone's like, you got to look out for them. You got to look out and just get them to the playoffs. Just get to them to the playoffs. Do you still see that? Or what are you seeing in this game?
Yeah, I think Cathedral is still a good team. I know it's hard to say with their record, but they have played nothing but on their schedule. And that's what happens. They're a great D1 team. They're just not a good open division team. That's kind of what I said about Mater Dei. Like Mater Dei got a bad record. They're still like ranked amongst the top 10, but you got to look at their competition and who they face. They face like nearly every team that's in the open division right now. So these are the teams you got to look out for. You might see their record and be like, oh, they're not a good team, but no, they're just not among the elite. They're a great team. They're just not among the elite. And you can say that about several D1 teams, that's what's going to make it interesting. You got a bunch of teams that's like second tier, and they're fighting to see who's the best among them.
Certainly would be
So,
interesting to see if the Holy Bowl could be a playoff game. I don't know how we'd have to end up having that happen with Saints and Cathedral, but they seem like they could be set for a fun 2-game span in a very short amount of time should the math work out.
yeah, that's what makes it so intriguing. There's just so many great matchups you can put together, and it's going to be exciting.
You talked about Del Norte. That'll open up the door for just let me ask you, anything else you're looking for this weekend? I think there's a couple interesting games on all sorts of the division races once you get into the final stretch, like we said. Anything else you're looking at this week?
Carlsbad at Torrey Pines. Torrey Pines has been just stunning everybody. Kind of that win over El Camino, and I think they beat Lacoste as well. So Torrey Pines is a team that we didn't talk about much, but they are making some noise right now. So that could be an interesting one.
Yeah, I'm also looking at Morris versus La Jolla. La Jolla early couple of losses for them in the season since then. They seem to have righted the ship and started to head in a winning direction. You look at it right now, 3 in a row. This would make 4 if they could take down Morris, a rematch of a tough game from last year. This one's at home. Other game I saw was Army, Navy, and Bishops on Saturday, because our show participated in a lot of Army Navy hype out the beginning of the game. They've been a good football team. They are a winning football team at 5-2, but this is going to be a tough test. They've lost the last couple of games and they've got to stop the skid at some point. Bishops is a pretty solid team, as we've seen with Cash Herrera growing into a better quarterback every single week as the year has gone on. And it seems like Bishops does this year after year after year, where they take a loss that everyone's like, oh yeah, that's why you can explain it away then. But then they start clawing back and end up playing like really elite football as they gel by the end of the season. And they're always a threat. I will be curious, because they are Division II. Where will they get seated? They could face some really tough teams in the playoffs, but this seems like, those were the 2 games. I'll just say that I was paying attention to most, for just like, I'm really curious about the results for those and the playoff implications.
Yeah, Bishop's been on a roll since they had that win over Mount Miguel. And speaking of Mount Miguel, another game I'm looking forward to is El Capitan going to Mount Miguel. I think that's a Thursday game. That's going to be a de facto Grossmont Valley League championship. Both teams got great offenses. El Cap, they got a bounce last. They had like 3 in a row, and they finally got a bounce back. So they're going to really need to be on top of their game going against the new and improved Mount Miguel team. They got some of their transfers were sitting out. They got some of them back. Paris Vernon, he already got an offer to Colorado State after just 2 games back. And Cardwell, he also got an offer to Colorado State. So those are 2 factors going into that game. It's going to be a fun one.
Last 2 weeks for El Cap, they are outscoring opponents 73-12. So it seems like, everything is clicking after a little losing skid. That's kind of what I was talking about with Army Navy. At some point, you got to see if a team can stop the skid. It would seem that they have. This is going to be a big test, though. Mount Miguel, their only loss this season comes to Bishops, who we just talked about, is playing some of their best football now and is a really good team. 6-1. We talked hyperbolically earlier in the season if they were the most dominant team, and I think you can say that since they're not undefeated, they're not the most dominant, but they do seem to have not ultimately suffered all that badly from that loss. I think it's safe to say that that was the exception and not the rule. Yes, you agree that loss really, they seem to have shooken it off completely.
Yeah, they say you can learn more from losing than you can from winning. I think that's the case with Mount Miguel. They realize, hey, we're not untouchable. If we don't come out here and perform the way we know we could, we can get beat by any team. So I think that taught them a lot. I think you never want to. Nobody wants to lose. I don't want to sit there and say a loss is a good thing, but I think that really humbled them, and I think they got better since then, especially with the some of their new guys coming back. They're starting to gel. They're starting to get back to putting up points. They just gotta get that offense going and do what they've been doing.
We've long debated the existence of moral victories here on the show, and I'm with you that you can't. I don't really feel good taking them. I'm with you on that. Raymond, thank you so much for joining us this week, guys. Check out everything that Raymond is doing at San Diego Football Network. He has great coverage of the high school, college, and pro football scene here in San Diego. Does great videography, does great lists, has the top 23 in 23. He's your man for rankings and all that kind of stuff. Raymond, let them know what you got going on this week.
Yes, top 23 and 23. Please email me your stats so I don't miss you. I've missed out on some great players last week. Or apologies. Christian don't like when I apologize, so I'm gonna hold off on that. But and players make mistakes too. So give me those stats. Email me any information you have, even if it's not accurate. Just let me know who you are so I can get you on there.
Yeah, I will explain to people out there that the high school information level is fantastic, but it is also not complete by any means at any point, because there's rarely ever people getting paid to input these stats. Like at the college and pro level, you have people in the departments of PR and stats and all that kind of stuff that are there to just do this kind of stuff. At the high school level, you don't. So
Yeah.
there are times where we get just the final score, and we have to wait 24 hours till huddle footage is up so we can go scouring through that. And sometimes it's not even 24 hours. Sometimes it's 48 hours. Sometimes it's people only do it on the 3-week interval. It's hard sometimes to source accurate data. And you might say, well, just go watch them. The most I've ever done is like 3 games on a Friday night. And even then, I'm not really watching the full parts of games. I'm there to just get the social media cannon fodder to get out to people. So it can be hard at times to study this. So, chill. Don't come after Raymond so hard. Uh, give the man a break. Until next week,
Yes,
talk to you soon.